Hey guys, MetalJesus here. Now today I thought it might be kind of fun to do an overview of the Asphalt Racing series by Gameloft. Believe it or not, it is the 15th anniversary of this series and it's been around since 2003 and there are 13 games to cover in this. Now before we get started, I do want to mention that this is a sponsored video. Gameloft reached out to me because I've covered their games in the past and they know that I'm a huge fan of racing games, so it seemed perfect for me to cover the entire series like this. However, please know that all of the opinions are my own. With that said, here's the first game. This is Asphalt Urban GT, and this was released at the end of 2004. From the very beginning, Gameloft's mission was to try to bring that console arcade experience to mobile devices, but remember, this is before the era of your modern smartphone like the iPhone and the Android, and so they were really just limited to the 16-bit style arcade racing games that you would get on something like, say, the Super Nintendo or the Genesis. But what really stood out for me was the inclusion of real licensed cars from manufacturers like Lamborghini, plus you had the Ford GT in here, a bunch of cars that I just dreamed of owning. And this was a really popular game at the time. It actually had 5 million downloads, which may not sound like a lot today, but it was very impressive at that time. After that, less than a year later, Asphalt Urban GT2 came out. Now what's interesting about this game is that the developers saw the future of 3D on mobile, and so for this one they actually developed a 2D sprite-based one that would run on lower-end phones, but they also did 3D versions of the game as well. So this is where the series first started appearing on things like the N-Gage, as well as the Nintendo DS and the Sony PSP. In 2006, they released Asphalt III and called it Street Rules. Now, this was more of an evolution of the series with some small tweaks, including, you'll notice there that they dropped the Urban GT from the name. Now, that was done to give the developer a little bit more opportunity to, say, branch out the series and not have it tied to that Urban GT name. And you'll see some of that in future releases. 2007 is when things get very interesting in the mobile market because that's when Apple released its very first iPhone, and that changed everything. It may be hard to remember, but the original iPhone's display was only 320 by 480. Not very impressive by today's standards, but at the time it was groundbreaking. And then you add in an ARM processor as well as a dedicated 3D graphics processor, and suddenly game developers saw all this opportunity to bring true console-like games to the mobile market. And then you add in the touchscreen as well as the gyroscope, and suddenly your game can appeal to a much broader range of racing fans. And this game did very well with almost 30 million downloads. In 2009, we saw the release of Asphalt V, and this was the introduction of a new game engine designed to take full advantage of the latest 3D technology. With that new game engine, they introduced the idea of track surface to races. So now you have to navigate and adjust for snow, ice, dirt, water, and also pavement, and each one of those can affect your traction. They also introduced weather to the game, as well as added shortcuts and jumps and some off-road sections. And each one of these Asphalt releases has been increasing the number of licensed vehicles included. So by the time they got to Asphalt V, this game has 33 licensed vehicles, including Ferrari, Lamborghini, BMW, and more. And another thing about Asphalt V is that this is where they introduced for the first time online multiplayer, where the previous versions just supported local Bluetooth multiplayer. So this is the first time that you can race people all around the world. Here is Asphalt VI Adrenaline. This was released in 2010, and this game really upped the arcade feel by adding more crazy jumps and stunts, as well as this adrenaline mode, which is basically a nitro that gives you a stupidly awesome sense of speed. It just allows you to plow through other cars. Also in this game was a focus on the single-player career mode, which gave players about 10 plus hours of content before ever even touching the online multiplayer if you wanted. And they increased the amount of licensed vehicles to 42. They even released a PlayStation Vita port of the game in 2012. They just renamed it to Asphalt Injection. You see me playing it here, and I do really like this version because I do really like physical controls, so it is nice having it on my PlayStation Vita. But I also have an old iPhone that I keep in a drawer that is kind of frozen in time with an older version of iOS, and this is one of the games that I have saved on it. Moving on to 2012, you see the release of Asphalt VII Heat. Now they keep adding more and more to these games, and this time they added 18 more cars, bringing that total to 60, and that comes from 24 different manufacturers. You now have sports coupes, supercars, hypercars, and even some legendary cars from history. And the series continued to take advantage of all this technology that's being packed into these smartphones. So for this particular game, they were able to double the polygons on the car models, and they even added better real-time lighting and reflections, as well as better textures. A year later, in 2013, they released Asphalt VIII Airborne, and here's where they took the opportunity to, again, revamp the physics engine. And you can see it in this game with even crazier stunts, and the crashes are even more destructive. Plus, it's just another evolutionary step up in the graphics department. And with this game, the developers continued to support it and add more and more content after it was released. So eventually, they expanded the number of licensed cars in this game to 250. They also expanded the number of online racers to 12, as well as adding racing leagues and seasons. I know myself, I play this game a ton on my iPad too. It's during this time that they also released some side games. So the first one being here is Asphalt Overdrive. This came out in 2014. Now what's interesting about this is that it's technically an endless runner. So your car just automatically drives forward, you don't have to hit the gas or anything, and you're simply just changing lanes and performing stunts. The next one was called Asphalt Nitro in 2015. Now what's interesting about this game is it's designed to be a small, kind of more compact racing experience designed for lower-end mobile devices. So when most of the other racing games were starting to creep up to, like, say, a gigabyte in size, well, this one was only 25 megabytes. The next game was Asphalt Extreme in 2016, and this was the first time that the series was taken off-road. It was kind of cool to see them take the series in a slightly different direction. In 2017, they released the side game Asphalt Street Storm. This was Gameloft's take on drag racing, where you outfit your car and then basically worry about proper shifting the gears to win races. And then that brings us to the most current game, so that is Asphalt IX Legends, and that was released in 2018. The focus of this game was to bring almost every legendary race car to this franchise. So you have the usual Ferraris, Lamborghinis, but you also get Bugatti, Porsche, Mercedes, and a ton more. One of the goals of this game was to try to make it enjoyable by gamers of all skill levels. So they introduced this thing called Touch Drive, which is basically like auto drive. You don't have to worry about acceleration or even steering. All you really need to do in this mode is focus on drifting and nitro. And I have to say, it's actually kind of fun, especially if you're looking for something a little bit more casual. But you can always turn it off if you want. And thankfully, all the crazy arcade fun is still here, including that ridiculous but fun 360 flat spin that you can do. It makes no sense, but it's a blast to do. As well as destroying your opponents with nitro and taking all those awesome jumps. And that's what I like about this series, is that at its core, it is just an over-the-top arcade racing game that just tries to be fun. So that's my overview of the Asphalt series. Now, in celebration of the 15th anniversary, Gameloft is going to gift all players of Asphalt 9 a special edition Dodge Challenger that has this 15th anniversary skin applied to it. All you have to do is launch the game between May 5th to 21st. I would love to know how many of you have played these games either on your mobile devices or on consoles. Please let me know down in the comments below. As always, guys, I want to thank you for watching my channel. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.